Gossiping about the career meltdowns of big-name stars, think Britney Spears, has become something of a blood sport nowadays. An unholy trinity of the paparazzi, the tabloids, and the internet has even pulled in mainstream media. The next thing we know, every detail, no matter how small or private, is pretty much everywhere. Our resident culturologist, Dr. Shirley Steinberg, is here. And let's start with, I guess, the queen of 2007 meltdowns, which was Britney Spears. Because it seems to me there was almost a perverse way of looking at it on the part of a lot of people. As things became worse and worse, people were more and more interested.
Yeah, like, all right, they like that.
She's really a living, breathing
She's a real disaster,
right,
you
right.
know?
Well, why is that?
And it's too simplistic to say it's like when we see a car accident, we slow down. I really think, Todd, people don't like young people very much. And I think young women really bother a lot of people. And I think the audience takes the high ground, the moral high ground, as does the media, about what these women are doing, which isn't much different than most women their age. I mean, Britney Spears and Lindsay started, they were kids when they started this. And when we say is their career in a meltdown, they're hardly old enough to have a career at this point. I think we're really hard on them. And I wonder if they were males, if we'd be also disturbed by what they were doing.
You know, there's that German term that you and I have talked about before the show, Schadenfreude, which is the idea of people taking pleasure in other people's unhappiness. You think it's actually even more than that. There's sort of a tisk-tisk going on.
It is. It's a tisk-tisk thing, and we need to get a German word for that. I do think people, I don't know it's so much enjoyment, but they all have such an opinion about what's wrong, and if this were my child, what kind of child would do this? And but very much, once again, if this were my daughter, if this were my girl child, people don't tisk-tisk when men do exactly the same thing. You
said that, you know, a lot of young people go through the same thing, but let me be devil's advocate here, because, you know, in the case of Britney Spears, I mean, you could argue that she's done a lot more than a young woman. I mean, you know, she's got 2 children now. She's been through this horrible divorce. Now she's lost custody of her kids. There's been issues about possible substance abuse, the suicide watch. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So, you know, there may be some sort of themes that young women go through, but it's like almost on steroids, though, to this point.
It is, but it's themes what young stars go through when their parents have been backstage parents pushing their kids at a young age. Her biggest song came out when she was 17 years old. When we're talking rock stars, we're not talking a few million like maybe movie stars or TV stars get. We're talking like $80–90 million for her first record. And what does a kid do this? So, I mean, we've seen this with our hockey stars when they're signed at a young age, the idea of alcoholism and how much money is spent. It's like when you give a kid that much money, they can do anything. Right.
Lindsay Lohan is another example.
Yeah, and do you know Lindsay Lohan's father was in jail for 6 years? He's a Wall Street guy, and it's real interesting to me that she would have that in her developmental years, a father in jail. Both Lindsay and Britney come from right-wing fundamentalist families who are very much engaged in a sort of religious, anti-abortion, pro-choice kind of thing. I'm wondering if religiously these girls are not rebelling from coming from a home that Britney was from Southern Baptist, Lindsay's from a very strong Catholic home, and there could have been a little just kicking in the face of the religious nature of their family as well.
You mentioned about whether if these were men, this might have been a different scenario. You know, Amy Winehouse is a great example. This is a British soul singer who's had a lot of #1 hits recently, and in this case of Amy Winehouse, you know, there's been issues with alcoholism, drugs, and you know, people have said to me, because I like her, why do you like her? She's an embarrassment now. You're saying that, look at the Jim Morrison example.
I mean, come on, what rock star hasn't been?
He became a rock icon.
Exactly. I just finished reading Eric Clapton's autobiography. He was a lot worse than Amy ever thought of being. And I have several of her CDs. I think she's brilliant. And, you know, there's also the thing about the muse many times of rock and roll is drugs. And I'm not condoning drug use, but I'm saying that there is a lifestyle that maybe lends itself. She couldn't have written Rehab if she hadn't been in it.
Or chose not to go to rehab.
Exactly. Right. And so I think there's a lot of that. I mean, it breaks my heart, and sometimes we will lose some of these young stars, but I really do think they'll grow out of it. I mean, George Bush is president of the United States, and he was doing a lot of cocaine in his young years, so maybe there is a future for them. I do think that it's sad. I think what's sad, too, is the paparazzi. Evidently now Britney is dating a paparazzi, so now he's going to get the dish on her. But I mean, when you see that she can't even back up her car, and that she throws her kid on the lap and tries to run, I mean, she had parents push her, she had church push her, now she's having the media and the paparazzi push her. I think it'll be a really hard life.
All right, Shirley Steinberg. Sternberg.
Thanks,
Always
Todd.
a pleasure. We'll
Yes.
see you again. We'll be right back.